So that was an excerpt from the third movement of Hector Berlioz's Symphony Fantastique. There are a lot of details in this excerpt, but first we'll focus on the pulse. Since our eighth note is a pulse, I tend to think of that as our quarter note, which means the written 16th note is more like an eighth note, the written 32nd note is more like a 16th note, and the written 64th note is more like a 32nd note. At square 41, where we begin, the basses are with the cellos. Right away, we're presented with this idea that occurs throughout the excerpt. Two 32nd notes followed by two 64th notes, all in the space of one beat, followed by a dotted eighth note. For this one, I bar the B flat F with 1, and then for B flat C D, 1, 1, 4. After this, we have a diminuendo down a B flat major scale until we get to the G flat accidental, which has a sforzando over it. Two notes before that, we see tenuto lines on the 16th notes. Before that, we have staccato 16th notes. So it's going to be very important to show a difference in style while you're doing a diminuendo. At 89, even though the music goes up, we want to stay in the soft dynamic. My fingering for that is as follows. Half position. I shift on open B to 1 on F, barred to B flat, C with 4, and then D, B flat in position. I don't want to do any shifts or any crazy shifts because I don't want to be tempted to do any type of crescendo. In the middle of the second line, we start out having the same idea, but then it goes to D, E flat, F, 1, 1, 4. This is again followed by a diminuendo, but no sforzando. In measure 95, we have an exact copy of the first statement of the idea, except we're a dynamic lower. Additionally, there's no diminuendo, but we do have a double up bow in 96, followed by a down bow crescendo and up bow legato notes. Though this seems weird at first to crescendo on the down bow, it actually sets us up pretty well to play the E flat and C in 96 on a diminuendo. It puts us in the latter half of the bow, which forces us to play soft. At the end of the line, we have accented A's going to a B flat with a slight breath mark. How big that breath mark will be depends on your director or your conductor, but for the recording, I wouldn't make too big of a deal about it. It's very slight. After the breath mark, we have tenuto lines, which means that we're going to change to legato 16th notes. I think this is more broad, a little bit slower. We don't want to go too slow because we have a poco animato at 100 and actually at square 42, 3 measures later. At 100, we have the same idea rhythm-wise, but we have a triplet 64th note following the 30 seconds. Don't think too much about this. Put the triplet 64th note in the same space as the normal 64th notes, and you'll be just fine. After this, we have an arrow pointing down, and at the end of 100 and at the end of 101, this means to take the part down an octave. So from the D flat, for those of you with the extension, 4, 1, 4, 2, 1, open. If we don't have an extension, the fingering may be a little bit easier because it's something that we're used to. In 101, we're actually going to play the next G flat E an octave lower as well. For those of you without extensions and those of you with extensions, we all meet up in the triplet B flat C D. However, there's another arrow going down. So for those of you with the extension, 4, 2, 1. Then we have a little bit of a stretch from A flat to F. Once again, we meet up at the C, D, E triplet. At 42, or 3 measures before 42, the fingering is as follows for everyone. 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, open, 4, open, 1. So I use the open D to shift to 1 for the last B there. One more time. I want to be ready for the second finger for A flat, fourth finger for D, 1 for G, 4. And I want to do speedy string crossings. In 104, we start out the same. B with 1, F with 2, open D to A flat either in half position or on a D string. It's an awkward shift either way. In the second half of 104, we're back to second finger on A flat. Here, I insist that we be in half position for the last A flat. It sets us up really nicely. Here, at the slash note, we're going to play 30 seconds. The way we measure them is going to be 4 30 seconds per eighth note. This is a little hard to keep track of, so we need to add a little bit of a push at the beginning of each one. In total, in this measure, we should play 24 30-second notes, or 4 per eighth notes. And then the last eighth note, or the last B flat, is going to be long. Full value. And then I think it's best that we do a retake for the next slash note, which is only a dotted quarter note. This means that we're only going to play 12 30-second notes. Once again, full value. And then we have an eighth note slash, which means that we're only going to play 4 30-second notes. While returning back to normal 16th notes. At the last measure of that line, we have offbeats. Not necessarily offbeats, but it seems that the first, let's say beat 1, beat 3, and beat 4 are missing. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. So in tempo, it'll sound like this. At measure 110, or the last line, we have all offbeats. We make sure not to crash into this E flat, even though we're fortissimo for most of the previous line. Most recordings that you listen to will make these last two measures really dramatic. For me, my chosen recording is from the album Keeping Score by San Francisco Symphony and Michael Tilson Thomas from 2009. I advise you to listen to this recording as much as possible, just so you can imagine the orchestra behind you as you play this excerpt.